Welcome to another segment of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host, and I am here once again with judicial candidate for the 351st Criminal District Court in Harris County, Texas, none other than Natalia Cornelio. Natalia, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I am actually doing very well. I've been locked up for a few weeks now. I've left the house probably twice to go to the store. How is this pandemic treating you?
It's an adjustment. You see the blessings, and as we process the adjustments, I've been eating a lot more than normal, having more beers than usual. But I've been working from home, and so I get to spend a lot of time with my husband and my dog. And I started taking work calls walking.
Really?
Exercise, yeah.
So let me ask you this. Do you think that, because I was talking to a few people about this, that people are probably going to do this and realize that they can and sort of incorporate this into life? What's your thoughts on that?
I think this is the beginning of expanded telework, for sure.
Yeah, I think so too, because people are going to get comfortable and they're going to start moving on. But I mean, I want to ask you something, because one of the reasons that you're here is we've all been talking a whole lot about national politics.
Yeah.
Your race isn't national, your race is local. Worse, a lot of times your races are way down on the ballot. And in Texas, there's nothing called party votes anymore, single party votes anymore. So why don't you kind of talk to us about local elections and why they are important, whether you're in Texas, California, or wherever?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm glad that you raised this issue. I've been thinking a lot about it. I know that for Democrats, I'm a Democratic candidate. Now we have one presidential candidate. And last night, the last candidate dropped out, which was Bernie Sanders. But a lot of candidates have been in the race, and it's been a big topic. And I was motivated to reflect on my race because a lot of people are speaking strongly, with the change in decision about who the Democratic presidential candidate was. And I've just been thinking about what all of the candidates brought to the table, and how much it matters on a local level. Criminal justice reform, healthcare, housing, immigration,
reform.
All of the issues are impacted at the level of thousands of human beings by our local government. And we have a lot of races up for grabs in this 2020 election that aren't the presidential race, that speak directly to criminal justice reform, immigration issues, education, housing, healthcare. And I think that it's a good opportunity for the local candidates and our community to come together and talk about what the conversation is and how the local leaders make an impact.
No,
Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to kind of ping pong off of what you just said. I'm going to say something that likely, as a candidate, you probably shouldn't say, won't say, etc. The last contest was between Biden and Bernie Sanders, and they decidedly have a different base. And it so happened that the younger base, a base that, to put it bluntly, would be more attracted to you as the young Democratic candidate for judge, that is a base that we cannot afford to lose because Bernie is not the candidate. And I think go ahead.
No, I think that's right. Finish your thought. I agree.
And I think one of the things that we have to be cognizant of, and I'm glad that you're bringing up the local issue, is that no longer should the argument be, or the discussion be, for those who support Bernie Sanders or other progressive candidates that may not have made it to, well, I'm going to sit out this one because I don't care anyway. But we have to start thinking about building a true progressive base from the bottom up, from the judiciary to the executive, to in all facets of government. And just because the top or your best choice didn't win doesn't mean that's a reason to sit out. There is a Natalia Cornelio to vote for.
Exactly. I mean, and the issues permeate. I don't want to discount the presidential election is huge, but they also get a ton of TV time, right? Like right now, the president is on the camera on TV for an hour a day. And so, of course, people think about that as the important thing, but I do want to talk about the local races. I mean, so the judges, criminal judges, preside over criminal trials, do sentencing decisions, make bond decisions. They affect thousands of people that come before them in so many ways that have to do with the trials and the cases, and then other administrative stuff, which I'll talk about in a second. But I just want to cover a little bit of the spectrum. You know, we're voting in Harris County for a state board of education candidates. They make state curricula. Our JP courts preside over eviction hearings. Our commissioner's court this week voted to stimulate and put money into rent relief, to give individuals payouts to be able to pay their rent during this crisis. Our local Democratic Harris County judge is managing this emergency along with all of the other local leaders. The governor is similarly having a huge impact on us. Our legislators that we elect on the state and federal level make laws that affect criminal justice, immigration, education, healthcare. I mean, all of these issues that I think people are hungry for leadership on and revisiting. The changes are happening. Those conversations are happening and stimulated at the local level because there was such a diverse platform of Democratic candidates at the highest level and has been, since at least 2016. So I feel a little heartbroken when I hear people say, I'm sitting this one out, because I think about if the issues that people care about are medical needs and or health needs and criminal justice and economic opportunity and civil rights, there are so many local players that we vote for that make decisions. Our sheriff runs the jail in addition to being a leader in law enforcement. Our district attorney makes critical charging decisions. Our judges make critical decisions for criminal justice, and so on and so on. So I was just thinking about that and really want us to come together as a community to think about who we have representing us and what impact and difference we can make.
No, I think that is so important, and especially, and we're going to have to find these types of avenues to get this message out, specifically because now we're under these types of quarantines, and the thing about it is, I know, unfortunately, I don't think this is the end of it. I think especially in November when it gets cold again in a lot of places, here will probably be warm, but we are going to have to really keep the pressure on to get both mail-in ballots and reasons, or ways to get our folks to get out there and vote. What are your plans to? You're going to talk a little bit about a little bit more local. So let's go ahead and have you say that before I get into plans on mail-in ballots, etc.
Yeah, and I'm happy to talk about that. I think one of the things I've been thinking a lot about on a local level for the county or the state is emergency management. And in criminal justice, which is my lane, right? We've had hurricane after hurricane, and now this pandemic, and each time we see in a reactionary mode what we need to do to make sure we can adjust, because there are certain court proceedings that still need to happen. Attorneys need to visit with their clients, or clients need to be advised of certain things. And one of the things that came up in this context is a lack of technology for a remote hearing to be made as readily as available as it needs to be to respond, frankly, to the public health issues that are present. So I think our leaders now and forever need to fight for infrastructure and technology that will allow us to respond to these crises that hit us, that we know hit us, and that we know are going to come in some way, shape, or form that will require us to make adjustments. And instead of stopping and being like, oh my God, what do we do? Continue to be prepared and be able to respond quickly and continue the work that needs to continue without people, being stuck in jail without getting to talk to their lawyer, for example, before getting to go to a court.
No, I think that is so important, both remote access, et cetera. And, we don't have a lot of people coming out and just talking to the community in that regards, letting them know what's the reason. People see a whole, myself in the past would see a whole list of judges and and don't quite understand the effect that has on my life in the long run. And I think a lot of people are going to start seeing this now, not necessarily only in your courts, but in the civil courts where because of COVID-19, we have rents that are going to be due, evictions that are going to come due, health care issues that are going to arise from those people who wouldn't have otherwise got sick but end up with a $30,000 bill and their wages being garnished by the corporatocracy and criminality emerging from that, which then goes into your court. I mean, we know that when this stuff starts to resolve, we are going to have there's a lot of folks who are going to do a whole lot of things because of the financial effects that will have them in your courts. So they should, and eventually in your courts, so they should kind of have an idea of how that works.
Yeah, and happy to do my part to lift up that message. I don't have a platform like President Trump to get to talk to everybody on TV every day, or even Governor Cuomo. But I think, figuring out how we can do that and can engage folks more, especially, making the most of technology and recognizing that not everyone has technology. All of those pieces come into play.
I am glad that you said that, because that's something that we have to work on. You just said not everybody has technology. And a lot of the people who will need you the most likely don't have a gigabit network, likely doesn't have a whole lot of computer, may have a cell phone here or there. What can you tell me as far as how we should reach those people? How can we, those of us doing independent media, how can we help you get this message to people that are not necessarily well connected? What can we do?
That's a great question. It's a tough question now. I know that yesterday I delivered tablets to students for a school. Mm-hmm. It was my volunteer opportunity. My one time out of the house the whole week, it was so strange. But, these kids are trying to learn remotely, but they don't have the technology. So some of the schools are providing that technology. And I think stepping up in a very similar way, some places have free internet. Making sure that technology is easily and freely available to people is going to be necessary.
Well, that's so. Let me see if I understand you right. You're saying maybe we should be doing things like having campaigns to try to get tablets to kids in underserved areas, maybe promoting that more and promoting those types of issues a bit more as we promote what some would say the big things. We need to actually, as you said, focus locally in what we're going to do and keep some space for promoting those things as well. Yeah,
I think that's right. I have to think about that. That's a tough question.
Right. Well, you can be as much as you want, because what we want to do is get that local message out, actually get the message out in from local to national to regional to wherever. Yeah. So that's why we have this platform. So when you have answers for questions or when you have answers, you always contact us and let us know, hey guys, this is what we need you to be doing right now. We are holding up the judicial end. You've got to hold up the fourth estate, and we're ready to do that.
Yeah, I think that's great. I've been thinking about it a lot as far as, the government does try to make some accommodations and print out some things. And, the government right now is deemed essential. So they have access to all of our communities or folks that hand out food. Those would be opportunities to share information. It really is like how does the freedom of the press operate right now? Some of these court proceedings, for example, they're adjusting technologically, so there's not open courts.
Oh, really? Yeah.
It's an example. Yeah, and they're not necessarily closed. It's just that so many adjustments are being made in general that, I know in federal courts, they're doing phone hearings, and some of the judges are scrambling to say, well, this person will always have access to these hearings and it's a press person. But that's not the same as, having an open court.
Right.
But I think it's two different questions. One is access to information, and one is resources and mediums to disseminate information.
Right. So, those are things that we have to work on, because those are also things that make a democracy function, right? When democracy only functioned with a piece of paper and pencil, everybody could get that. But now as an example with a pandemic, where those people who have access to work at home have a privilege, and those are the things that I've been speaking about over the last few weeks. We ought to be so thankful that many of us can do our work from behind a computer in the safety of our homes, when there are those who have so much more that they have to do just to survive as well.
I think that's right.
But anyhow, Mademoiselle Judge Cornelio, and notice how I preempt it already, because I believe in speaking it. It happens. What else would you like to say before we end this segment?
Well, you wanted to talk about voting, which I think is a huge issue right now. And so I don't know if you've been following the lawsuit that was recently filed by the Texas Democratic Party and joined by others, including, I think, the Texas Civil Rights Project, and the county is going to join the suit too. And the point, every state's election laws are different, and Texas's are actually better than, say, Wisconsin's.
Imagine right now, that, huh?
where the law has a definition for what makes you eligible for mail at home ballots. And the interpretation by many right now is that these circumstances are essentially a disability that qualify us for being eligible to request a mail at home ballot. And so that's being litigated not because it's a fight, but because the people that have that interpretation and understanding want clarification and want to ensure that they can plan accordingly, because increasing the number of mail ballots is going to be expensive and a transition, and people need to plan and prepare for it. So there's litigation going on to seek, I think, clarity on that point and allow governments and parties to prepare.
So my question about that is, does the population at large, I know our judges are, does the population at large have the ability to influence the outcome of that, whatever the judgment's going to be or the result's going to be?
I'm a lawyer, so that's a hard question for me.
But you see what I'm saying? In other words, I know that theoretically speaking, it is hard to think that the judiciary would be influenced by popular beliefs other than by constitutional guidance. That's right. My question.
Well, I think the better question, and I'm going to do this as a judicial candidate, is it's not so much the judiciary being influenced as the arguments made by the party. Judges certainly notice when the parties agree to something. So, for example, if the state agrees that, or the Secretary of State agrees that this is the way that it should be, then the litigation is not adversarial, and the question posed to the judge is going to be different than two parties fighting it out and the judge having to make findings of fact and conclusions of law based on...
Makes a lot of sense.
So I think at a minimum, advocacy can be aimed at the folks involved in the lawsuit so that our voices are heard insofar as building the arguments themselves and whether the two sides are in agreement or not.
And tell me if I'm understanding this in simple terms. In other words, we need to be working with the plaintiffs and the defendants itself to try to get them as close as possible when they confront the judge. Am I getting that clear at all, or similarly, or?
Yeah, I mean, sort of. In this case, because the defendant is, state actors, we can let them know what we think.
Right.
Or the plaintiffs, to the extent that they represent any one of us in the community,
who
we
votes.
can let them know that we agree with them or offer to help. A lot of different plaintiffs, attorneys have joined the lawsuit on behalf of different communities. So I think exactly. Sorry, my phone.
Oh, that's okay. You're a lawyer. You're.
Now that I'm working from home, everything goes through my computer.
Well, you know what? That's new technology, and that's how it runs. Every now and then that happens. There are times that I'm on air, and a Skype call would come in that shouldn't have come in. So it happens.
Yeah.
Anyhow, Miss Cornelio, give me a closer.
The closer is I really am excited to be, so we didn't talk about this. I'm really excited to be the Democratic nominee for the 351st. We haven't talked since the primary. It's been a strange time since then. But, seeing that we have one presidential candidate and the conversations happening around this emergency period, I'm excited to get folks excited about local elections. All of these positions that we're going to vote for in 2020 impact thousands and hundreds of thousands of lives. And so I just want everyone to know your voice can be heard. Talk to us, the local candidates, ask us questions, tell us your stories so that who we are and how we represent you is reflective of the experiences that you're having. And if you feel a loss because of the president's candidate, reach out to us and make sure that your needs on the issues are being heard by us, because it's a collective effort. I had a professor in college who used to say, think global, act local. And I still think about that. And it's the same. Act local. Like, we are here to serve you and excited to serve you. So just remember that you have power and your voice matters, even if your favorite Democratic nominee didn't.
Don't agonize, organize. That's what I heard from one of our famous politicians. But anyhow, Natalia Cornelio, judicial candidate for the 351st Criminal District Court in Harris County. And folks, don't forget, Texas is not, you hit one button and you get all the votes in. You have to specifically go and vote for the person in Texas. So remember, the judicial candidates are always a whole bunch at the end of the ballot. You got to go ahead and vote the whole ballot.
So we're so cool.
Exactly. Natalia Cornelio, thank you very much for the interview. And remember, you have a platform here. So, whenever you have stuff that you have to go out there and let folks know about, that's what we're here for.
Thank you so much. It's been so good to get to talk to some.
Have a great day, and we'll talk to you later.
Talk soon.
I'm Egberto Willies, host of Politics Done Right, an independent news program. I post several news videos of interest every day. I ask you so kindly to subscribe to my channel, and please leave me some comments. Thank you very much.